Hey everybody, this is Matt coming to you from Spur, Texas. You're watching Broke Rednecks Prepping. What we're going to do today is talk about bug out locations. It's kind of an interesting topic. You're going to see this on literally every prepper channel anywhere. I don't, as a rule, like the term bug out location. So, before we discuss it, I am going to bust out my handy dandy iPad and read for y'all the best definition of what a bug out location is. It is a retreat. Survivalist retreat intended to be self sufficient, easily defended, and are generally located in sparsely populated areas. A lot of people who prep are always prepping for the worst case scenario. They think to themselves they need a bug out location off in the woods, a cabin in Alaska, something nobody can get to, nobody can find, where they can take all of their preps, their pre prepared food, their guns, or whatever. I like to think of a bug out location as more of a backup location. It is part of the prepping lifestyle, but should something like a grid down situation, something commonly referred to as SHTF, be the only thing we prep for? So, what I want to do today is talk about a few little thoughts and some ways that people without a lot of money can have a backup location or a bug out location. Now, for the average prepper, for somebody who's trying to make sure they're prepared for a power outage or prepared food or have enough water on hand, especially if you live somewhere where there are earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires like they have in California, you want to have a backup location. When I lived and worked on the Texas coast, hurricanes are big enough. It's not like I could go from, I don't know, Houston to Victoria in Texas or Corpus and avoid it. I mean, you take Hurricane Harvey, it technically hit Corpus Christi. That's a couple hundred miles from Houston. Then it hit Houston. And what most people saw on the news was the flooding and the damage in Houston, but we forget, as a Category 4, it made landfall in Corpus Christi. I mean, when you look at the U.S. map, that's a healthy distance. How do you bug out there? It caused heavy and torrential rains all the way up to Dallas Fort Worth. We're talking a massive area. That would be like trying to having a hurricane that could hit New York and Boston and send rains all the way to the Great Lakes. So, what I wanted to talk about with the bug out location for the average person who's just trying to be prepared is having somewhere to go. You don't have to have a cabin in the woods to avoid something like that. But why not have, I don't know, a vacation house or a hunting lease somewhere that you could go to? In our case, I live and work in Odessa, Texas, which, if you're looking on the map where that is, it's out in the middle of the desert part of Texas. So, if I need to get away from there for whatever reason, maybe a weather factor, a long power outage, or something like that, I looked at some land about 2.5 hours to the north where property was really cheap. Now, because it was really cheap, I took a couple different options. One, the kids and I bought a $6,000 house. It's on our other channel, Broke Rednecks, look it up. Yes, we bought a $6,000 house. We're actually doing some videos on our regular channel renovating it. Part of the reason for it was I don't plan on living in Midland, Odessa forever, so I wanted kind of a place that I could put some things. But it does serve as a backup location, a bug out, if you will. By the time we're done with it, our remodeling budget's less than $5,000. We're essentially going to have a comfortable, livable $10,000 house when we're done. So I kind of use that as a backup location. It's somewhere I can store things, food, clothing. I mean, think about if you were in the tornado that hit Moore, Oklahoma a couple years ago. It tore it up. People who had their houses hit and affected by it literally lost everything. I mean, think about being at work. You don't have clothes, you don't have food, you don't have anything. If you're a prepper in that situation, you may have lost several years worth of preps in a situation like that. Having a backup location where you can put them, we've all heard, don't put all your eggs in the same basket, is really handy. Now, I know a lot of people can't afford to do something like that, but the average person could save up for or even finance a house that inexpensive. And if you look at places like Spur, and yes, I'm outing Spur as a place for preppers to go, the house that we bought at that price is not the only one available. And even if you're in a major metroplex in New York and LA or Chicago, My guess is within the distance that you might want to go for a weekend trip, you're going to find some cheap real estate with some cheap housing or however you want to do it. We bought a place in a small town where most people are already self sufficient. It's not on major highways. So if a grid down situation happened, it's really not a bad place to be. Most of the people are used to gardening. There's a lot of arable soil around. They're accustomed, it's an agricultural community. They're accustomed to growing most of their own food. So it was kind of a good place to be. Another option that we have with preppers a lot of times is they look at bug out locations. Yes, being helped by a pit bull. And they see a bug out location as a kind of single thing, only one thing they can do with it. And if they pick something in the woods or somewhere else, they're thinking of it as a place where they can go and survive and live off the wild. Well, a lot of preppers like to camp. We like to hunt. We like to go fishing. Why not get a place like that? Doesn't have to be expensive. I mean, if you look at areas in West Texas or certain parts of New Mexico or up in the Great Plains, you've got property going for $1,000 an acre. Or you can buy cheap properties and put something on it next to a national park or something along those lines that doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Travis is filming this, so I'm going to ask him, can you actually see the dog?
A little bit.
Okay, so yes, okay, yeah. I have a pit bull named Dobby. As a side note, I named him after the house elf from Harry Potter. So you'll see him periodically in these videos. Anyway, if you're going to have a location you're going to bug out to, why not use it for something else? I mean, if we're going to take kids camping and teach the family how to do it, why not make it fun? Why not have the hunting lease or have the property that you do hunt on or go fishing on or just go camping because it's a good way to disconnect? That's what we do. We bought some property, about 20 acres. It was not terribly expensive. And we did it with the idea it's going to be a recreational property. Now, if a solar flare hits and shuts off all power, or there's rioting in the streets because, I don't know, the government banned food and so everybody's trying to kill each other for it, yes, we have a place to go. At the same time, it's far enough from where we live and work as a rule that most likely outside of a hurricane, which we don't get in the desert, we're in a situation where if it is a tornado or a regional power outage, we have somewhere to go. That both in the little house, but also the hunting lease, where we would have food supplies, some things like that. But you also want to be able to rehearse your prepping ahead of time, have the garden, have the food. I mean, if we're going to buy cheap stoves, we want to try, the little propane ones, you want to try them out. Do we have enough water? Somewhere that you could put, say, some Connex trailers and store things. And that's something that a lot of people really don't think about. I know a lot of preppers who, they've got 100,000 rounds of ammunition and whole closets full of non-perishable foods. But how do you transport that from where you are to your bug out location? They just think they're going to go to the woods and, I guess, walk off into the Adirondacks or something and nobody will ever find them. But how do you move that stuff? That would be something you'd want to rehearse. And the easiest way to rehearse is by doing it because you enjoy it. By being able to, all right, well, I'm going hunting this weekend. We're going to go camping. We're whatever. So that you know the route. You know the different routes. You know the people in the area. So you know which vehicles should or shouldn't be there. That's something a lot of people don't consider. But along these lines, a lot of preppers don't necessarily have a lot of money. I say I bought a $6,000 house, which isn't expensive, but that doesn't mean that somebody watching this video has $6,000 they can just pull out of their butt. Well, you do have to save up for some of those things, but if we bargain shop everything else, you can also bargain shop properties. And I would wager that if you go to websites like Zillow or Lands of Texas or Lands of any state, you're going to be able to find some really inexpensive properties. You're also going to be, if you look for places that are being sold for being behind on taxes or something like that, you're going to be able to find a lot of those in really off-the-wall spots. Also, when you get away from cities, you're going to find somebody who has an odd piece of land that isn't really worth a lot for the purposes of agriculture or building that they just want to get rid of. Anyway, that's kind of what we do for bug outs. But with these bug out locations, you want something that you have to decide what you're bugging out from. We have the house in case if we have to just leave because, I don't know, the power's out in Odessa or there's no water, which is as much growth as going out there happens periodically. You'll see some of the towns don't have any water. And yes, the dog needs attention apparently. So you'll see that quite frequently. Dobby, sit. Thank you. But if you need somewhere to go, we have the house in town. I mean, if we're just trying to get away from a bad weather event or something like that, we don't need to go camp in the woods and live under a tarp by the pine tree for a week. I mean, why not have somewhere with Wi-Fi and cable and fun things like heat and air conditioning? I mean, I prep, it doesn't mean I'm going to overdo it. So, but you want to consider with that, are you picking a town where most of the other people are, or at least of some similar mind, if not completely like-minded? Is it somewhere you can get to easily? Is it a route you know? I mean, if we're leaving where we are because, say, an ice storm knocked out the power, is that something where we can get to our bug out location? If you're going to pick something in the woods, well, we all say that if the grid goes down, we're going to go live off the land with nothing but a Remington 30-06 and our good looks. But is there actually any game there to hunt? Is there fish there to catch? I mean, trust me, I've gone fishing a lot of places, and I'm reasonably certain there weren't any fish there because I tried everything. I mean, if we tried to live off the land on a couple of the creeks back home, back near Houston, we're going to starve to death in a week. We would be eating grass and leftover squirrels. And these are kind of things that you want to know ahead of time. It's also, if you have a piece of property, why not put a garden out on it? Why just assume you're going to look for edible plants? Why not go out ahead of time and plant them? They'll attract game in to hunt, but it's also something you can utilize in a bad situation. And if you have a backup location, somewhere rural, somewhere quiet, it's something you can get a Connex trailer for a couple $1,000s a lot of times and put your stuff out on. So you've got it locked up somewhere away from where you are, away from a metropolitan area. Anyway, those were our considerations. But I think no matter where you are in the country, you can find some rural land, find somewhere secluded, find somewhere not where you are, not in an urban area that you can go to in a crunch. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on a bug out location. As we proceed with this channel, we're going to show them to you a little more. If you want to see the $6,000 house, go check out Broke Rednecks at YouTube. Or on YouTube. We're still in the process of remodeling it. We got it about a month and a half ago. So we're still rebuilding, and you can watch, mostly the kids do the work because I pay for it. So you can watch them repaint or some of the projects that we're taking on. But you'll get to see what the finished project looks like. It's still a work in progress. But at the same time, when we were going to go out and do a video at our hunting lease that I guess could be a bug out location, well, it's not really lease because we bought it, but on our property, we didn't because it rained this weekend, so roads weren't all that great to go out. But over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be out there some more. Anyway, as you want to, I hope people comment, tell me what you think a bug out location should be, where it should be. I think it needs to be somewhere that has water that's kind of secluded, depending on what you're bugging out from. But anyway, throw some comments up. Let me see your 2 cents, and let's see if we can't get a discussion started. Dobby, you want to jump up? Want to say hi? I don't know. Anyway, from those of us here at Rednecks Prepping, Broke Rednecks Prepping, and Dobby, hit like, hit subscribe, and hope you'll watch the other videos we pop up.